Thank you, Bill. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the February 2021 SEAC webinar. As Bill mentioned, my name is Susan Foer. Okay, thank you. And I am with CalPERS Employee Response Team. I'll be your moderator this morning. Today, you'll be hearing some of the latest updates on services, programs, and policies related to your work with CalPERS. The presentation will take about 2 hours, which includes a 10-minute break. There will be plenty of time for questions following each presentation and at the general roundtable at the end of the webinar. A few housekeeping items. As Bill mentioned, this is being recorded and it will be available on our website next week. All attendees' microphones are muted, and today's meeting materials are available on our CalPERS SEAC webpage. But if you have any problems locating the materials, please feel free to email the SEAC mailbox and we'll be sure to get you those. That email is calpers_SEAC@calpers.ca.gov. And finally, if you have questions during the presentation, please submit them for all panelists into the Q&A feature in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrea Peters.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Peters, and I will be providing you a quick state legislative update. In our current state legislative environment, we can expect to see a reduced bill workload during the first part of the 2021-2022 legislative cycle. Legislative members will be limited in the number of bills they can introduce due to COVID and subsequent COVID restrictions. All bills for the 2021 legislative calendar year must be introduced by Friday, February 19th. Last November, the CalPERS Board of Administration approved CalPERS team members to move forward with 3 legislative proposals. The first proposal assists the CalPERS Investment Office in pursuing private debt investment opportunities. Assembly Bill 386, authored by Assemblymember Cooper, facilitates bringing private debt investment management in-house by setting up public records disclosure requirements consistent with existing law that governs externally managed private debt. This bill is a reintroduction of the board-sponsored AB 2473 from 2020. However, the scope has been limited to apply only to CalPERS. AB 2473 applied its provisions to CalPERS, Calstrs, and the UC retirement system. The bill language found in AB 386 is modeled after existing public records disclosure requirement laws that apply to both alternative investments and public banking. Bringing these investments in-house allows CalPERS investment team members to directly manage these investments, and CalPERS, in turn, saves on fees and costs associated with external management. CalPERS believes that the proposed disclosure requirements will provide the appropriate balance for protecting borrowers' information and ensuring transparency for our investment team's decisions and performance. The second proposal specifies that the membership enrollment date for optional members is the start date for the appointment if the membership election is received by CalPERS within 90 days of the start date. If the election is received after 90 days, the enrollment date would be the first day of the month in which the election is received by CalPERS. Optional members are generally local elected officials, governor's appointees, and legislative employees. Existing law does not provide deadlines for this election, which has allowed for confusion for both employers and optional members. This proposal provides a clear timeline to make and process these elections, while providing both employers and optional members the flexibility of a 90-day window. The third proposal allows CalPERS to collect any overpayment made to or on behalf of any member, former member, or beneficiary from any future CalPERS benefit that may be payable. When a retiree passes, there is often an overpayment that has been paid, which must be collected and reconciled with the benefits associated with that individual. When there is an ongoing benefit payment, CalPERS is usually able to reconcile the overpayment by withholding the amount from the ongoing payment. However, for lump sum payments, this reconciliation may not always be possible. This proposal gives CalPERS team members the authority to recover overpayments by withholding the amount owed from future payments, which will reduce the number of uncollected overpayments. This authority is modeled after a Calstrs law that was enacted in 1976. CalPERS team members are working with the legislative committees on packaging the optional membership and overpayment provisions. CalPERS team members are also monitoring bills that have been introduced that are not sponsored by CalPERS. Senate Bill 278, relating to disallowed compensation, has been reintroduced by Senator Leyva earlier this week. Among other things, this bill defines disallowed compensation and stipulates what would occur if disallowed compensation is reported by the state, school employer, or contracting agency, including requiring the employer to pay the retiree the actuarial equivalent of any reduced retirement benefit. It also allows the state, school employer, or contracting agency to submit additional proposed compensation items to CalPERS to determine compliance with existing laws. This bill was first introduced in 2018 as SB 1124 and again in 2019 as SB 266. CalPERS team members are reviewing the bill language and will engage with the author and stakeholders as the bill moves forward. This concludes my presentation, and I am happy to take any questions you may have. And I am not seeing any questions at this time, so I will go ahead and pass this on over to Brad.
Good morning, everybody. How are you doing today? And, you know, I need to get a new picture on here that isn't Austin Powers that you see on the left-hand side. That's actually me, Brad Hansen, for those who don't know me. Today, we're going to talk about a new functionality that's in the system, and I'll give you the reasons why we included it in there and the importance of it. So we're going to talk about certificated school members. So a couple of years ago, the Office of Audit Services within CalPERS noticed a weakness in our system that we were not able to identify what members are certificated and what members are classified. And the importance for that is because of this government code that you see on the screen right now. Government Code 20962.1 essentially states that if a member is a certificated member, they receive full-time service credit for the academic year. So that means that regardless of how many hours that they worked in that academic year, they actually should be entitled to get 1 year of service credit per fiscal year. And so, you know, going through our system and looking into it, we didn't really have any indicators in there that would tell me if you were a certificated member or a classified member. So the two different members are separate, and they actually earn service credit at a different clip than one another. So in order to address that, we came up with a plan. So we enhanced my CalPERS to add an enrollment indicator on the appointment detail screen. And we're also going to create a Cognos report that will allow you, the school employers, and us as well to run a report and see if those members are actually earning their full year. So As of September of 2020, last year, we actually added that indicator into the system for online reporter. So if you're online, you already have that functionality to go in there and click that box. In March of 2021, so this upcoming year, in the next couple of months, you're actually going to have also access to that Calstrs report that will allow you to see how much service credit each certificated member has. And then in June of 2021, we're going to require it for XML reporters as well. So right now it's kind of an optional field, though, we are going to require it. So you have time to kind of catch up on this and get some of those people keyed in there. So we're going to actually start this process, the full board process, in 22-23 fiscal year. So here's how the process works. When you go to enroll a new member, you go to add their appointment in, there'll be a little checkbox. You mark that box as certificated, and then you report them accordingly. We recommend that you report certificated members as equal payments to ensure they get their full year. It's not required by law that you report as equal payments, but it is probably the preferred method because that way you can ensure they're going to get their full year. So at the end of the fiscal year, we're going to run a query using that Calstrs report I mentioned earlier. And it's on that query, you have a certificated member that doesn't have a full year of service credit for that fiscal year. We're going to send a letter to the employer, to the district, and let them know that you have a certificated member that didn't have a full year. Please go in and, review your payroll and make any edits or corrections that you need to ensure that the member gets the full year. And, of course, if there's any kind of questions or concerns, you can always give us a call or email us, and we'd be glad to help you with whatever issues that you might have with it. So you might be asking, well, what about all of our existing certificated members, right? There's been certificated members enrolled in our system for years, and we still don't know if they're certificated. You do have the ability now to go in and add that to their appointment. However, we are going to be reaching out to you with a cleanup project. The way I'm envisioning now, we haven't hammered out all the details, is we'll reach out to all the county offices. We'll ask you to collect that information from the district. And if you can give us a list of those certificated members behind the scenes, we can go ahead and flip the switch for you so that they are certificated. Again, if you want to be proactive and get at it now and go in there and add those and click that checkmark box, you can do that, but we will be reaching out to you in the near future to help you clean up that data. We just recently sent a circular out about 2, maybe 3 weeks ago that talked about this new process, and hopefully you've all gotten a chance to read it. There's also, in our technical resources, it's kind of a walkthrough of the process and how that checkbox works. And it's also in the My CalPERS Retirement Enrollment Student Guide. So those are all the resources available to you. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me or anybody in Employer Account Management Division at CalPERS, and we'd be glad to help you or answer any questions you might have. Okay, so if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the Q&A section. I'll have a few minutes to answer a couple of them, then I'm going to pass the baton over to Dan. So I'm looking over there now. So I got one question. For the certificated indicator on the XML file, when will we receive a new XML file layout for our system provider to work on? This does not give us much time to have our provider time to add this to the XML file. They are working on a huge source file. Okay, that's a good question. I'm going to have somebody that works on the XML file for this go ahead and answer that in the Q&A field here, because I'm not exactly sure myself when that will be added in. So that's a great question. Is there any other questions? And throughout the presentation, if you happen to come up with another question related to this topic, please just go ahead and type it into Q&A, and either I or somebody else that has the answer will be able to answer it for you throughout the presentation. What about retired teachers? Do we need to audit if they got correct retirement, or is it just moving forward? Well, yes, potentially, these members should be entitled to get their full year of service credit. We're going to rely on you to provide that data for us, but I will warn that potentially if there ever was an audit of a school and a certificated member happened to not get that full year, we would require you to correct it at that time. So it's probably best to, yes, also look at those retired members as well and correct their data if it's necessary. Oh, here's a really good question, and I'll probably have to defer to our membership team for this one. If we update an existing appointment, will this trigger a late appointment on arrears, 20283? I believe it won't, because it's not like you're creating a new appointment. It's just updating the appointment. So you should be able to avoid that arrears determination.
That's correct, Brad. This is Jennifer.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all I have for today. Again, if you have any more questions, please continue to ask them on the Q&A feature. And I'm going to go ahead and pass the ball over now to Dan Nguyen.
Thank you very much, Brad. My name is Dan Nguyen. I'm the manager over the membership and post-retirement employment determinations team. And I'm here to talk about retired annuitant COVID exemption appointments. So with that, let's just begin. As you all know, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and in March of last year, Governor Gavin Newsom signed an executive order lifting some of the working after retirement restrictions for retired annuitants. I can't believe it's been 11 months since he passed this executive order, but we are currently in the middle of the pandemic, and there is no end in sight for this executive order. So anybody working or has been acknowledged working under this exemption can be and will continue to work under this exemption until the governor lifts the executive order. So I'm just going to go over what rules have been suspended. So first of all, the hours worked will not be counted toward the 960-hour limit. As long as retired annuitants working under this exemption, the 960 hours will not count, or the hours worked will not count towards the limit. There's also been a suspension of the 180-day wait period. What that means is that normally a retired annuitant, after they retire, they have to wait 6 months before they can return to work as a retired annuitant, but that has been suspended. The 60-day bona fide separation has also been suspended. So they do, if they are working under their, or if they retired under their normal retirement age, they will not have to wait the bona fide separation, or the 60-day bona fide separation. What the governor's executive order did not suspend is the predetermined agreements with the bona fide separation. If you have a retiree or potential retiree that is under their normal retirement age, you cannot have a verbal or written agreement for them to come back to work as a retired annuitant. Luckily, we have a system enhancement in place. So if you have somebody where you question what their normal retirement age is, you can look in my CalPERS and you will be able to see what their normal retirement age is. So let's say you have somebody that you want to bring back as a retired annuitant, or you have a retired annuitant that is coming close to the 960 hours and you need to have them continue to work. What you need to do is to contact CalHR at CA State of Emergency at calhr.ca.gov. They'll provide you a template. They'll ask you who the retiree is, what they'll be doing for your agency, what you're going to be paying them, along with a justification of why you're bringing them back. Usually the justification has to be along the lines of providing adequate staffing. Once you notify CalHR, CalHR will notify us, and we'll review the appointment for compliance for any prior violations, or if they're under this bona fide separation. And once we review the account and see that everything's okay, CalPERS will send an acknowledgement letter to the retiree along with a carbon copy to their employer, letting them know that they are working under the COVID-19 exception. We are logging all of the COVID-19 exemptions in my CalPERS. Once we review the accounts, we'll mark the appointment as being under this executive order. And once the governor's executive order is lifted, we will be sending a letter to every retiree working under this executive order that the executive order has been lifted and that their hours will start to count towards the 960-hour limit. I want to talk a little bit about interim and vacant position appointments. A lot of these rules have not been suspended. The 960-hour rule obviously has been suspended for interim appointments along with the 180-day wait period. But for these vacant positions, usually, they are your chief business officer or your director of HR, something like that, a high-level position. When you're trying to fill it with a retired annuitant, it must be approved by the governing body, and in this case, for schools, it's usually the County Office of Education in most cases. And there still needs to be a recruitment while the retired annuitant is in this position. Now, before, we used to say that this position can only be appointed once, usually 6 months to a year. And if you didn't find anybody to replace the retired annuitant within the end date, the retired annuitant would have to vacate. But Governor Gavin Newsom signed a new executive order, N-8420, back in December 12, 2020, stating suspending this part of the rule. So basically, if you have an end date for your retired annuitant working in a vacant position and you haven't found a replacement yet, you will be able to extend the retired annuitant's appointment in this vacant position. I'm actually working on a circular letter right now, which should be out in the next week or two. So we'll provide more details in that circular letter. Moving on, I want to talk a little bit about retirees working in permanent positions. This pandemic has been very costly to employers. We've seen a lot of COVID-19 related turnovers and vacancies. We see a lot of districts scrambling to keep their offices open, and they're hiring retired annuitants to provide adequate staffing. But what we're seeing is that a lot of retirees are coming back and working full-time because the exception allows them to. And this could be a potential issue once the order is lifted. I'll give you an example. I've seen where a district had their whole front office basically either quit or retire due to the pandemic, and the district had to scramble to find replacements, and what they did was they hired retired annuitants to come back to work in the office. But in reality, yes, they are providing adequate staffing and during an emergency, but they are in permanent positions. So during this time, I'd recommend that you as agencies start the recruitment process to fill in these positions, because once the order is lifted, we'll take a closer look at these retired annuitants working in these positions, because the emergency order will be lifted and there would be an argument if they are currently working under an emergency. With that, that's all I have regarding COVID-19 exemption appointments. I'm going to look at the Q&A to see if you guys have any questions right now. Okay, so the question is, the Working After Retirement Guide states that retirees can be appointed to an interim position by a governing board or by an employer. There is no mention of it needing to be approved by the COE's board. Is that an actual requirement? Yes, it is, because the statute says that it needs to be reported by the governing body of the contracting agency. And the COE is technically the contracting agency with CalPERS, so that's why it has to be approved by the COE. Ramona Coker had a question here. Currently, we update an existing appointment. Does it automatically trigger that it is late? If you update an appointment, it should not trigger that appointment to be late. If it does, just let me know, and then I will work with our financial team to get that resolved. Okay, those are all the questions that I see. So if you think of a question, please put it in the Q&A and I'll be able to answer it. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Christina Rollins to talk about State Social Security Administration. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Let me get my slide with you. Oops. I think I'm having a little issue with the slide. Hold on 1 second. Okay, there we go. Good morning, everybody. I'm Christina Rollins. I'm the section manager over the State Social Security Administration team, and as well as the membership and post-retirement employment determinations team, the team that Dan just went over. And today I'm going to be discussing State Social Security Administrator updates. So today I will be reviewing information about Social Security coverage for rehired annuitants. We will also have updates about the Social Security invoices and the newly created annual information request form for school districts. And at the end of the presentation, I will be presenting you with some resources available. So let's first start by talking about retirement system ineligible. So I'm going to explain what a retirement system ineligible is. An ineligible is an employee who performs services in a position under a retirement system, but who is also personally ineligible for membership in that system because of a personal disqualification, such as the number of hours that they worked or if they are receiving a pension from another retirement system. For purposes of extending Social Security coverage, the individual must meet the definition of ineligible at a critical time point. These are: first, the employee must be an ineligible on the date the agreement is made applicable to the employee's coverage group or the date the employee first occupied the position under the retirement system. So an employee who has the option to join the retirement system on the date the employee first occupied the position would not be considered an ineligible. For divided vote retirement systems, an employee is ineligible for coverage purposes if the employee is ineligible for retirement system membership as of the date the employee first occupied his or her position. So next, let's see how a rehired annuitant fits within the definition of a retirement system ineligible. So first, let's talk about what is a rehired annuitant. And many times people get this confused with a retired annuitant. So retired annuitant for CalPERS working after retirement purposes is different than a rehired annuitant that comes and works for a public agency after retirement, or school or state. So it's not as simple as who is hired for part-time work to be considered a rehired annuitant. So rehired annuitants are defined as a person that participated in a retirement system. The rehired annuitant must be rehired by their former employer or an employer that participates in the same retirement system the individual's pension is coming from. And the rehired annuitant must be either receiving a retirement benefit or must have reached retirement age under the retirement system. If these criteria are not met, the individual is not a rehired annuitant, and they should be treated like any newly hired employee for Section 218 agreement purposes. Once it is determined that a rehired annuitant is not covered under a Section 218 agreement, if the employee meets the definition of rehired annuitant, then they would be exempt from mandatory law. So school district Social Security coverage. This is key information for the schools. In 1956, the state of California entered into Modification 315, which extended Social Security coverage to all school district classified positions under CalPERS. The modification did not include any language that would extend coverage to employees who are not eligible to join CalPERS. Some school districts have entered into additional modifications which may provide coverage for employees who are not eligible to join CalPERS or Calstrs. The coverage for rehired annuitants may vary depending on several factors. For example, if the rehired annuitant is receiving a pension that is not from CalPERS or Calstrs, Another example would be some school districts have entered into a separate modification to provide coverage for retirement system ineligibles under an absolute coverage modification. Some modifications specify that the coverage is only for retirement system ineligibles from CalPERS or Calstrs. An additional note that we want to remind you about is that an employee who was hired or rehired after April 1st, 1986 is mandatorily covered for Medicare. This applies even if the individual did not pay during their working career with their employer. So, what information do we need regarding rehired annuitant, and if you have questions? Well, first, we strongly recommend that you reach out to our team if you have questions about Social Security coverage for a rehired annuitant. These inquiries can be very specific to the district, to the COE, and research is needed, and sometimes we can't give just a general answer. Our team needs the information to provide a true analysis of the position in question, and so we need that to provide guidance to Social Security and regarding Social Security withholding. So some of the information that we need when you have questions about rehired annuitants is we need to know which school district they're being rehired into, what position they will be occupying, what retirement benefits are offered to someone in that position who is not a rehired annuitant, and which system are they receiving their annuity from. So I have in my next couple of slides a couple of sample inquiries that we get often to our State Social Security Administrator team. So I just want to cover those. I want to cover both of those so you can see, again, the general inquiries we get and our responses for each of those. Again, if you have an issue that's more specific to your own situation at the district, please reach out to us and we can answer those questions for you. So in the first example, the County Office of Education is hiring an annuitant who is receiving a CalPERS pension, and they are hired into a position covered under CalPERS. The school district does not have any additional modification to provide coverage to retirement system ineligibles. Our guidance would be that the rehired annuitant is not covered under a Section 218 agreement and is not subject to mandatory Social Security, but they are subject to Medicare. So for our second example, the COE is hiring an annuitant who is receiving a CalPERS pension and is hired into a position covered under CalPERS. The school district has a modification to provide coverage to retirement system ineligibles. So our guidance for this, because again, they're receiving a CalPERS pension, they're hired into a position covered under CalPERS, and because the school district has a modification to provide coverage, our guidance would be that individuals covered for Social Security and Medicare under the school district Section 218 agreement. So next we're going to talk about school district and our Social Security agreement invoices. So we're going to totally switch gears from rehired annuitants and get into, again, more about invoices and the AIR forms. Okay, so our system has been enhanced to issue invoices for each district, which will be sent to the respective County Office of Education. So they will be sent to the COEs. The COE will be able to see all the invoices and will be able to identify them with the CID and name of the district on each of the invoices. Our team will reach out to each of the COEs to obtain the proper employee count so we can issue the invoices for the proper amount. We anticipate that the invoices will be issued in late March. Okay, so with that, we're going to go on and talk about the school district annual information request form, also known as the AIR. The AIR will assist our team to obtain accurate data from each of the school districts and to ensure that all school districts are withholding Social Security and Medicare accurately. So for the error form, all school districts will be issued an error in CalPERS. And this year we have questions about tax withholding for both CalPERS and Calstrs members. We are requesting the total number of employees at each school district, and we now have system access, which requires business partner Social Security permission set. So if you don't have this access, you need to contact our customer service center, or you can contact our team directly. And I'll give you those resources at the end of the presentation to email us or give us a call if you're having issues. So to access the error form, first you're going to log in to the CalPERS webpage. You're going to click on the Employer and Business Partners link, as shown with this red arrow on the screen. Once you enter your sign-in information, you're going to click on the Profile Global Navigation tab. So that profile is boxed in red at the very top of this screen. Then you're going to click on the SSA Annual Information Request on the left-hand side Sub-Navigation tab. If you have the business partner Social Security permission set, you should be able to see the request date hyperlink. You're going to click on the most recent one and the error questionnaire will populate. So this is a sample of the questions that we will be asking about the current tax withholding practices for Social Security and Medicare. So we're asking about, again, name changes. In addition to CalPERS, is there a FICA replacement plan? For employers who are CalPERS members, does the employer withhold both Social Security and Medicare? For Calstrs members, do you withhold both Social Security and Medicare? And then for employees who are not members of CalPERS or Calstrs, does the employer withhold both Social Security and Medicare? Okay, so last I'm going to go over the State Social Security Administrator resources available to you. You can reach the State Administrator team by email, phone, or email. We are available to assist you with questions related to Social Security and Medicare agreements and the Section 218 program, as well as mandatory withholding. Please, if emailing, note the extra S in our email address. If you do not include the third S, your email will not be received by us. The email address, again, is here on the screen. It's sssa@calpers.ca.gov. And our direct line is also here as well. Employer resources. Explore these links to find out more about the resources available, including the Social Security Administration government site developed specifically for government agencies, and it's a very useful tool to make sure that your agency is being compliant. And there's toolkits also located on the IRS website for federal, state, and local governments in regards to making sure that your agency is self-compliant with the Section 218 agreement. As a state Social Security Administrator, we also have a dedicated web page on the CalPERS website. You can find many helpful links and more information about what we do. And we also have a student guide that will help you navigate the error form. You can also subscribe to our quarterly newspaper on the State Administrator webpage. And we also offer webinars on a monthly basis. So here on my screen is our upcoming webinar schedule. So next presentation we have will be the Introduction to Section 218 Agreements, Part 2. We had Part 1 at the end of January. This presentation, the Part 2, will be Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. And then we also have another one in March, which is what is new with the annual information request. So it'll go into more detail of some of the screens that I went over with you today. And that one will be Wednesday, March 31st, 2021. And you can go into the CalPERS website and register for the Social Security and Medicare webinar. Okay, with that, are there any questions? I can't, let me go back to the questions. Okay, so I see a question from Ramona. It says, if we miss part 1, can we rewatch it? At this time, we don't have a feature that will allow you to rewatch the presentation. We are working on that, but right now we do not have an option to rewatch it. But we do give that one often, so I'm sure it'll be coming up before the end of the year again. Okay, I think we had a few other questions that were answered. I don't see any more in here. Again, if you have any other questions, please reach out to us. I see there were some more questions in the chat, and I see that Veronica answered some of those questions. If you have any more questions, again, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll answer all of those questions. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Susan Poor, because I think on our agenda coming up, we have a break.
That's right, Christina. So this is a good time to take a 10-minute break. So we're going to start back up at, let's see, let's make it 10:25.
Okay, go ahead, Susan.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going to get started again. Christy, you have the floor. Christy, you're muted.
Mute. I show unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So I was talking to myself, but I was not muted, so I apologize. So I wanted to make sure that all of you were aware that we did release a new student guide, and it was dated January 16th, 2021. So please ensure that you have downloaded the most appropriate and most current employment certification student guide to use when receiving or replying to any of these letters that we get. We've included this chart here that will give you direction as the employer on what to do next in the student guide if you receive any of these items. So that is a handy chart to have if you are getting the letters requesting information from CalPERS regarding employment certification. And I see, Teresa, that you have a statement about the clearness of the slide. It is a better, once you download the student guide, the items are more clear. I had some, it looks like when they transferred it to the PowerPoint, it blurred. So please ensure that your agency downloads the January 16th, 2021 version, and you'll have a clear picture to utilize when you're completing the information you need for each of your employees. We did want to announce that we are going to be having a webinar and demonstration of the new functionality, and we have set the date for February 25th. So look for emails to your agencies to sign up and we'll be doing walkthroughs and requesting information or questions prior to the demonstration. So look for that. February 25th is when we will be conducting a walkthrough demonstration for the agencies. So I also have one final slide you should be able to access using the PowerPoint, the most current student guide. If you have any questions regarding any of the information in the student guide, you can either email membership reporting inbox or call the customer contact center to get any of your questions addressed for your specific agency. And it looks like we probably can address, Ramona, you commented about the clarity of the picture. I will ensure that we have our COD team look at maybe making this bigger and making an addendum in the student guide so it is clear for you when you download it. So that's all the slides I had. Are there any questions? I'm not seeing any other questions or statements. Okay, so I think it's time to pass the, oh, Ramona has one. Let's see, Tammy has, can a school district provide information on my CalPERS without the payroll update access? I will defer that to our payroll folks. I think Aya's on the line, and I believe that we need to set up access for the school district. But can you confirm that? We will go ahead and get an answer to you by the end of the presentation today regarding that access question. Ramona, when we receive a $500 fee but no arrears fee, how do we provide the info to get those fees? So Ramona, if you have received a $500 fee charge, go ahead and email the membership reporting box and we can research for you regarding the receivable if there isn't a associated CID to the charge. Okay, Monica, I will take that under consideration about adding the decimal points. And right now you're going to need to round up or down according to the hours that are needed to be entered. Okay. Okay, April, if you can email the membership reporting box, we can certainly set up a time to work with your agency individually, but also make plans to bookmark the 25th to attend the online training. And Erica, again, go ahead and email us the membership reporting box regarding your paper question, and then we would need to refer that to our team at service credit area to address. Erica, go ahead. When you send the email to membership reporting, please, she asked about requesting one. Go ahead and request that they email me your email, and I'll give you a call later this week. Okay.
Okay, next we have Greta.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Greta Moritz, and I'm one of the managers in the Retirement Benefit Services Division. And I was asked to provide a little bit of information and updates on sick leave. And then Christy and I are going to answer a couple of questions about AB 50 or 1522 with regards to sick leave as well. So just for a few minutes, I was asked to basically have a short discussion about sick leave, accumulating it, transferring it from one district to another, tracking it? Are there different types of sick leave? And then can it be transferred from one retirement system to another? So accumulating sick leave, the rate at which someone accumulates sick leave would normally be stated in the MOU or a hiring contract between the employee and the employer. There's no amount of sick leave, no maximum amount of sick leave that can be reported at retirement, but it must be reasonable based on the amount of accrued service credit from an employer with which the employee worked for. So for example, if someone had 10 years of service credit at retirement and earned 8 hours of sick leave per month, that's essentially 120 hours or 120 months times 8. The maximum amount of unused sick leave hours someone could have earned is 960 hours. So whatever is reported, we would only question the amount if it exceeded the maximum amount possible. Regarding transferring from one district to another, in 2019, CalPERS amended Payroll Section 20963.5. This was to codify our current practice and added language that sick leave shall include sick leave granted by the employer, subject to this section, and any sick leave transferred to that employer pursuant to Section 44979, 45202, 87783, or 88202 of the Education Code. This is similar to how we treat state agencies, where we consider all state agencies the same employer. And we made this change because when members move from district to district, in my CalPERS, new appointments with new start dates are created. And so for the purposes of reporting unused sick leave at retirement, the last employer would often report more sick leave than what was possible to accrue during that last appointment time. And it resulted in audit findings. So in order to reduce the amount of audit findings and to basically allow CalPERS to use the unused sick leave in a retirement calculation, we amended that section. As far as tracking sick leave, CalPERS has no way of tracking sick leave, so that would be on the employer to keep track. And as far as different types of leave, I was asked, is there basic versus excess leave for PERS like there is for STRS? And no, we don't have different types of sick leave like that. Transferring sick leave from Calstrs into CalPERS, basically the question is, can leave earned in a certificated position be transferred to PERS if a certificated member becomes a PERS member with a new employer or new qualifying position? And no, there is no provision in the Payroll that allows for a new sick leave to transfer from another retirement system. So then Christy and I were going to talk a little just briefly about AB 1522, which that was the enacted the Healthy Workplaces and Healthy Family Act of 2014, which provides an employee in California who works 30 days or more after January 1st of 2015, 3 days of annual paid sick leave.
And so the question, yeah, okay, sorry, I'm back. So we, the question we received was, can this sick leave be used to qualify for the 1,000 hours? And so what we took that question to mean was, is the sick leave time used when you're calculating out the 1,000 hours for someone to qualify for membership? And the answer is yes. any sick leave that a person would take during their qualifying time period would be added into the calculation for the 1,000 hours.
And then is it reported as when a member retires? It would be reported just like any other unused sick leave. There's no distinction for us. Again, the government code referencing this is 20963.5. And if you have questions, which I do see some here, go ahead and submit them through the Q&A. Let's see. The classified, yeah, there's quite a few here. So, yeah.
So what we can do, Greta, is work together and provide the answers either at the end of the session or send them to Bill or to the SEAC so they can respond.
Perfect.
Okay. Next we have
thank you.
John Ern.
Thanks, Bill. Hello and good afternoon. My name is John Nguyen with the member election team. Today, we would like to announce some exciting enhancements when uploading a retirement system election to the CalPERS system. This page is where the retirement system election is uploaded, as well as where school employers provide information regarding the position, such as the election effective date, employee sign date, time base, and pay rate. We are adding a total of 3 fields to this page in order to allow school employers to provide additional details regarding the employee's position. These new fields will display when a position is certified as being part-time, daily paid, or hourly paid, as these types of positions typically do not mandatorily qualify for Calstrs membership on the date of hire. The fields that are being added are first, the Calstrs membership date. This will be in a month, date, year format. You will enter the employee's Calstrs membership date if available. Otherwise, you will leave this blank. Another field being added is the position contract FTE %, which represents full-time equivalency. This will be in a numerical format up to 3 digits. You will enter the position's FTE equivalency 1 to 100%. The last field that is being added is the community college district permanent position. If you are a community college district where the position is permanent, you would select yes. Otherwise, you would select no. These enhancements will increase the amount of auto-approved elections and reduce the overall processing time of those sent to the member election team for further review. For the elections that are approved, this will allow our school employers to report payroll contributions more timely. These enhancements are scheduled to be released in March. After the release, we can provide additional details and guidance on how to complete these fields as needed or requested. Please feel free to reach out to myself or the member elections team if you have any questions regarding this upcoming enhancement. And then I will leave it up to Q&A. Okay, it looks like we don't have any questions, so I will pass the ball to Ryan.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Beaker, and I'm with the CalPERS system support team. So I will cover the most recent enhancements we have made to the retirement enrollment screens. Everything I will cover today is optional. However, we highly encourage that you complete as many of the optional fields as possible. The more information CalPERS has, the quicker we can make timely determinations that will reduce the amount of waiting times for our employers and our members. The only required field that will we have is the new certificated employee indicator, and this will be required field with the 9.5 system release in June. The certificated employee indicator is currently in the MyCalPERS system, so we want all the schools to use this as soon as possible before it becomes mandatory on June 19th. So first new field we have is the enrollment reason. As the name implies, CalPERS is included an optional area to explain how the new members qualified for membership. The reasons include already a member, full-time for 6 months or more, at least half-time or more for 1 year or longer, completed 1,000 hours in a fiscal year, elected CalPERS membership, or other. If other is selected, a blank text box will appear that you will need to fill out before proceeding. Next, we have a certificated employee indicator. Again, as of right now, this is optional, but honestly, why wait? We encourage you to get in the habit of completing the section before it becomes a mandatory requirement in June. The section is a yes/no question that will ask certificated employee per Government Code 20636.1. Next, we have a retired annuitant type. In this retirement enrollment screen, if you indicate this is a retired annuitant appointment, an optional retired annuitant type will appear. Retired annuitant types include extra help, earnings limit, vacant position, and FERC. Then we have the 180-day exception indicator. This will be a yes/no question to account for those retired annuitants who may have had a 180-day exception. Then we also have a 180-day exception reason. This field is only required if the previous 180-day exception is marked yes. Reasons include appointed by governing body, Senator Assembly rules, or CSU early retirement program. There will also be a provide document link where you will upload your appointed by governing body documentation directly to CalPERS. After you completed the necessary fields pertinent to the retired annuitant and 180-day exception reason, and after Dan's team has processed this information, you will be able to view the executive order information by clicking the employer link within the appointment history section and seeing the executive order number as well as the start and end dates of that order if we have that information. So everything that I just covered also applies to our XML retirement file uploaders. Again, I want to emphasize that as of June 19th, the certificated employee section is also a mandatory field for those employers who use the upload method for retirement enrollments. This is an optional field right now, so we highly recommend that you become familiar with how to format this new field, so when it becomes mandatory, it will be a seamless transition. We will have this information published on our public website by mid-February, so you'll have time to format your XML files accordingly. We'll also be emailing our employers who utilize the XML upload about these new fields by the end of the week. Lastly, just a few reminders about assigned roles and system access administrators. We highly encourage you to regularly run the Business Partner MyCalPERS User Access Report. This report will show all the contacts for your different schools and their assigned roles. These assigned roles are critical in viewing or using specific pages within the MyCalPERS system and providing specific system access. Don't forget to subscribe to our email notifications for up-to-date information. The quickest way to subscribe would be to type in the word email subscriptions in the upper right-hand search box on our public website. You will have the option to pick which type of subscriptions you want to be notified of, things like employer bulletins or CalPERS news. Don't forget to check our system enhancements page on our public website for the most up-to-date information regarding new enhancements. This can be located by clicking on the Employers tab on our public website, then the MyCalPERS Technical Requirements, then on the System Enhancements tab. So just to review, all these fields that I covered are optional. The only one that will become mandatory is the Certificated Employee Indicator, and this will become mandatory for both manual entry and XML file uploaders starting June 19th. At this time, do we have any questions regarding the recent enhancements? not able to see my Q&A. Let's see. All right, well, at this time, if there are any questions that come in, feel free to write those answers out, and we'll do our best to answer those questions. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Michael Hedin in the Customer Service and Outreach Division, and he'll go over the virtual CalPERS benefit education events, also known as the CVs.
Michael, are you there? Okay, I think we lost Michael. Let's turn it over to Colleen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Colleen Kane-Herback, and I'm going to bring it onto our screen. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. This is my first time presenting here. My name, again, is Colleen Kane-Herback. I work in the Pension Contracts and Pre-Funding Programs Division. More specifically, I work for the pre-funding programs, which covers the California Employers Retiree Benefit Trust, as well as the California Employers Pension Pre-Funding Trust. Today, I'm going to be talking about some new CalPERS enhancements for both of these programs. So with that, we started these trusts in 2007, and at that time, CalPERS was in the stages of starting to get created. And so while the trusts were getting created, we basically have kept these two programs outside of the CalPERS system. Well, most recently, we have changed that. And what we have done over the last couple months is that we have now added the CERT and SET programs into CalPERS. So who is impacted for this? It is CERT contracted schools, public agencies, and in the state of California. What is new? So with these programs now being in CalPERS, what our contracted employers will be able to see is we've uploaded all of the agreements for each employer. We've uploaded a delegation of authority to request disbursements form, and we've also uploaded all of the account information for employers, including their investment strategy that they've selected. And moving forward, starting on March 1st, we are going to be having employers start to contribute through the CalPERS system. So I will be sending out communications to all of our contracted employers actually this afternoon, setting up and providing them with some webinar dates. So I'm going to be providing some one-on-one training with the employers to walk them through the upcoming new process for the contributions. At this time, the employers will be able to see that they are, that their contracts have been uploaded and that the system functionality is there to allow them to see their agreements. Ultimately, we did this because we wanted to improve the transparency for all of our contracted employers into CalPERS and the transparency that we have. So a lot of the time, the employers and even internal staff didn't know who was contracted with CalPERS. And so it was our goal is to, when an employer were to log into or business partners to log into CalPERS, they will now see all of the agreements that they have with CalPERS, not excluding the CERT and or now the SET programs. So with that, again, as we talked, this is the information that we have added in. So it is their signed agreement, the delegation of authority request disbursements. This form is important because once the employers want to seek taking money out of the trust, this form is needed to identify the positions that are authorized to seek the disbursements from the trust. So if an employer were to go in and see that they do not have this form in there, then prior to us being able to send money out and back to the business partner, we would need this form to be completed and through pretty much a governing body approval. And so it may take a little bit more time for employers to facilitate this form. In addition, we can see that we do include the account numbers, the asset allocation strategies. For the CERT program, there are 3 different strategies. So this just, again, helps clarify and bring more to the forefront what information and how their accounts are set up with the CERT program. It also provides the effective date of the agreements. What is new is that we have created a new permission set. So for business partners to look at all of this information, they will need to assign themselves the business partner CERT roles. So if any questions come about, please feel free to email us, give us a call. But ultimately, we will be hosting about 6 webinars over the next several weeks where we ask that employers and business partners come in, join in. No registration is required, but it really is going to start walking them through the system enhancements as well as the contribution changes that are going to be made starting March 1st. Ultimately, the primary difference is that currently any contributions to the CERT fund, the employers will fill out a contribution form, email it to our financial office, and then they would facilitate the contributions outside of CalPERS. The changes are that they will go into CalPERS, and instead of filling out the contribution form, they will initiate the request in CalPERS. We still allow for checks, wire transfers, the ACH credit method, and now through this new functionality, we're able to add on the ACH debit method. So if employers would like to submit money that way, then that's an additional functionality that we have set up for them. Currently, there are about 71 schools that are contracted with the CERT program, and that includes county offices of education, community college districts, as well as independent school districts. And so there's more information to come. We will be hosting a lot of webinars to help train on these changes, but ultimately I really just wanted to give everybody on this webinar a heads up on some of the changes that they will see. We really hope that this improves consistency throughout how all programs work at CalPERS as it relates to being visible in the CalPERS, as well as now having a little bit more consistency for entities wanting to send CalPERS money. And so with that is all the information I have to share at this time. Here is my contact information. If there's any specific questions, please feel free to give me a call, send us an email. I've attached or included all of my contact information for this, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have through the chat function right now if you guys need anything.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we have Michael on the phone. Michael, are you there?
I'm here. Hello.
All right. Hello. Go ahead.
Perfect.
All right. And then are we on the right slide?
Bill, can you? Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Moving to the right slides. Here we go. All right. You can still hear me, right? Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Hedin. I'm the team leader over the member education unit here at CalPERS. Thank you for having me today. I'm here today to provide an update on the CalPERS benefits education events and to let you know that we've gone virtual. Woohoo! So maybe you already heard, but in 2020, we actually coordinated 2 CB weeks. And those 2 events actually had about 15,000 members join those 2 events. And so, you know, there's definitely a demand out there with our membership. And so for those events, we offered informational classes and we provided Q&A sessions for the members who joined, and so they could ask questions during those Q&A sessions. You know, we saw large attendance. People had great satisfaction, evaluation reports back to us. And so, you know, through the CB Week, we really wanted to adapt from what we learned and make some improvements. And so we'll be hosting a virtual CB Week this coming March. And so March 24th and 25th, we'll be hosting a 2-day event. It's going to be hosted through a platform called Cvent. And Cvent uses Zoom to have our face-to-face interactions. And so, mid-February, you'll see our marketing and our invitations go out. And so I think we have a mixed room right now. So for those of you in Southern California, you'll see a direct email invite come out your way. But for the folks in Northern California, no direct email is going to go out to you. But if you did want to participate, there'd be an opportunity to register on our website in the member education area. So it would be open for everybody. Let's see. And then, so at the event, we're going to improve this event, and we're going to actually bring in exhibitors. And so now we're not really going to be calling them exhibitors. We're going to be calling this information or an interactive information center. And so they're going to be more like information rooms. And so in these information rooms, we're going to have different partnering organizations, and we're going to have our CalPERS teams there as well. So you can see here who's going to be there. These are just the more, we got our CalPERS teams here, and then you can see we're also going to have Social Security, CalHR, Nationwide. We're going to have our retiree organizations there as well, our supplemental income plan. So basically, everybody that was at the in-person events back in the day, they're coming back, and now they're joining us in the virtual world. So pretty cool. All right. The class lineup is going to be similar to our in-person events. We're going to have 8 different classes, and those are going to be in career stage classes. So we have some classes for early through mid-career members, and then we have other classes for our nearing retirement members. And then so over the 2 days, it'll be 20 classes. And so be on the lookout mid-February for those invites, Southern California. Northern California folks, you can go to our website and you can register for the event. Just want to make a plug for our member education bulletin as well. Please subscribe to the member education bulletin or let your members know about that, because that's a way they're going to be able to see other training opportunities, educational opportunities, webinars, online training. And then we also have a new resource available, a member education resource. If you went to our member education page, you'd be able to find this, or the link is right here. But basically, this is like a one-stop shop document that shows all the different member education we're offering. And then it has very convenient links that take you out to different videos that we have out there on our YouTube channel. So go ahead and check those out and be on the lookout for the invites. Thank you, everybody. And I'll pass this back over to Bill.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we have our question and answer piece from Brad, Jennifer, and Renee. Hi, guys.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's time now for Renee and Brad and Jennifer and the rest of our panelists who are available to answer your questions. So let's submit your questions using the Q&A, just as you have been doing. It's at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And Brad, do you see any that we can start the roundtable off with?
There was quite a few little follow-up questions on the certificated member panel. There was questions on where you find it. If you go to the retirement enrollment student guide, there will be screenshots in there that kind of show you where you go to mark that radio button. So I definitely suggest going there. Of course, you can also call us or email us, and we can walk you through it as well. And then some other questions came about, like part-time certificated members. So like if you have someone that's a sub and they're certificated, and they're only working here and there, that's not necessarily working the entire academic year. So they wouldn't get the full year of service credit, but we still want you to mark that indicator in the system when someone does enroll as a certificated member. We still are required to track them and to ensure that they're getting the proper service credits that they're entitled to. Those were just a few of the questions that I saw. And also I took down some notes too that, a lot of you would like the opportunity to maybe ask your questions verbally opposed to just doing the Q&A. We're taking it under advisement, and perhaps the next SEAC meeting we can change up the format and allow for that. So I took those notes down, and we'll look to improve upon this next time. Those were just a few that I saw for my section.
And I think I've reviewed the Q&A at this point. I just answered a couple, just some folks were asking about the presentation materials and where those were located. So those are on our CalPERS website. I also saw or posted a link to the retirement enrollment guide that Brad had referenced. So if you guys wanted to take a peek at that, you could do that. I believe that all the other questions have been answered. I did see a couple where we did indicate we need to do a little bit of additional research. So we will work with Bill and Susan to get those responses and send them out to the entire group so you all can benefit from the answers. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to put those in the chat, and Renee or Brad or I can tackle those as we move along. I do see a question. I'm not sure if it's for one of us, but maybe Bill or Susan can answer this. They were wondering if we could make the Q&A portion available to them. Is that possible, you guys?
Bill, you can chime in, but I think we can get those sent to us, the whole script, yeah.
Yeah, that would probably be helpful. I know the Q&A went by quite quickly, and I found myself having to scroll back a few times. So if we could make that available to the group, that would be fantastic.
We can do that.
So
you're welcome, Monica.
Does anyone else have anything to add before we sign off?
I don't see anything in the chat or any more questions coming through, so maybe like last call or do we want a countdown? I'm not sure.
There is a question that just came in related to where they marked. Oh, no, my screen keeps jumping back.
Yeah, it did. It keeps jumping back.
I guess so whenever one new one comes in. So it does.
Yeah.
There isn't any more questions. I'm open, though, to leaving it open for, say, 5 more minutes. So if anybody does have those questions, or maybe as they're looking back through their items, if they see something, we're happy to answer it.
And maybe while we wait, sorry, Brad, while we wait, I know you said you took down some feedback, but if I can just take a minute to encourage everyone who's on the call, if there's topics or things that you would like to see spoken to at the next SEAC, please send those ideas to the SEAC mailbox. Let Bill and Susan know, what it is you would like covered, what your specific questions are. I know a portion of the presentation today was tied to specific questions that we received in the mailbox. So I just want to encourage you all, if there's things you want to hear from us about, please submit those ideas and questions into the mailbox so that we can address them at the next SEAC.
Did you get that, Brad, that Teresa asked a question about the list of legislative items? I know there was only, I believe, 2 or 3 items that Andrea mentioned, but we can certainly have her send a recap with the 2 or 3 of them. There really isn't much going on right now. There's a couple internal and I think a couple external, all of which I heard Andrea talk about. There really isn't much on the horizon. There's still such a focus on COVID that we're not seeing much in the way of impact to our daily operations.
There was also another question about sick leave earned as a part-time faculty as a classified employee. Can that be reported as unused sick leave? I don't know if Greta's still on, but is that a question that you could answer, Greta, or do we need to research that one?
I want to research that one.
Okay.
Just to make sure that we think we know here in benefits, but I want to get back to everyone with that.
Okay.
So,
Andrea, I wanted to say one thing too, real quick, Susan. Oh, go ahead if you have an update on legislation.
Yeah. She did send us a message. She couldn't, she froze up, her screen froze up, so she sent it to our mailbox. She said she was trying to answer the question about the recap. She said, I believe she may be asking for printouts we used to provide. Right now we are at the beginning of the legislative cycle, and all bills have not been introduced as of yet, so no report has been generated. As of right now, there is one bill that we have identified, SB 278 by Senator Leyva. I gave a summary of that in my presentation, but I can recap it for the person if needed. We will provide a list of bills at the next SEAC meeting. And for the second question, she wanted to know the bill number. That person might be referring to Bill SB 278 regarding the disallowed compensation. AB 386 is related to private debt records disclosure requirements. So that's what she was able to respond in her email. If you guys need more details, go ahead and put that in the Q&A and we'll send that off to her.
All right. One thing I wanted to add to, and I mentioned a little bit in my presentation, is about the certificated member indicator. So the way we're kind of working out the details, but how we're envisioning doing the cleanup project is we'll send out like an email to each one of the county offices, basically requesting that you could work with the district to send us the list of members that they have that they've identified as certificated. And then you can send that back to us. And then behind the scenes, we can run like a data fix to just go and automatically mark those past members for you. So there'll be more to come on that. We'll be reaching out to you within the next 2 to 3 months. Again, we're not going to actually implement this process and run the letters and anything until beginning of next fiscal year. Right now, it's just kind of an effort to get that data into the system so that we know what we're dealing with and then move forward with the process. So more to come on that, but we will be reaching out to you in the future to help you clean up that past data.
Okay.
It looks like there's one more last question came in from Nancy Chow, too.
Yes, Brad. So I'm pulling up the circular letter for that right now. So
okay.
For reporting paid leave under the Families First Corona Response Act, I'll put the link in the chat. It's circular 200-021-20 that we issued April 16th, 2020. And that will have all the background on membership reporting, how retired annuitants are impacted. It covers compensation and payroll reporting. So I'll put that up in the chat for everybody so that you guys have it. Whoops.
And there's a Purster's election form question.
Yes. Will the certificated member flag trigger an audit of Purster's election forms? Jennifer, can you answer that one? I don't think that will trigger an audit. Of course, if someone is electing PERS or STIRS, you should have that election in there.
Yeah, I don't believe that it would. We should have it on file if you're putting it in as a certificated member. We should have something on file. I'm not sure if Heather is still available, but if there's additional information, we can send that out after the meeting.
Okay, any other questions?
Yep, looks like Did something just go? Oh. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and close out then. We want to thank our presentation team for passing along all their valuable information, and you, our employers, for your questions and comments. As a reminder, this meeting was recorded and will be available on the website next week. Calstrs will be hosting the afternoon session today, and their meeting starts at 12:30. You can log on to the Calstrs website to join their meeting. So we do appreciate your time today. So thank you again, and be safe and have a great day.